So one quick way, especially because in today's world, you guys have so many more resources than in the past. For me, a default position, I would have started with just the pictures in the book, or maybe going to the glossary and seeing if I can find that specific word and having something to anchor it to. Okay? One way to help out with words, maybe not necessarily people, but words of, descriptive words. Look to break it down into the root words, Greek and Latin roots, because that, especially in biology and especially in anything medical, right? They like to break things down into, directions, right? So like you can talk about anterior, like I was talking about with somebody about on your leg, there's a muscle in the front of it, right? This is called the tibialis bone, right? And then this is the front of it. The front is your anterior, like the antlers of a deer, or like the anterior of the house is the front. So tibialis, which is this bone, anterior, the front muscle, tibialis anterior muscle. Okay, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. But I'll tell you this. If I didn't break it down like that, I told you, memorize this word, tibialis anterior. Is that kind of hard to memorize? Yeah, it is. But if you can break it down to the different separate pieces, then it makes it a lot easier. So on default position, we want to make sure that we find ways to anchor down those thoughts. So for something like Napoleon, if you didn't know who he is, I would actually go onto Google and find the most ridiculous picture you can of him. Okay? One thing we'll talk about in a little bit as well is something called a memory palace. All right? A memory palace is a specific way of memorizing lists of things and the process of things, but we have to be careful with it and we have to understand how it works. All right? Now, the thing about a memory palace that makes it really useful is that when you create these images to help you memorize things, you make them as ridiculous as possible. The more ridiculous something is, the harder it is for you to forget it. Okay? Then what we can also do is we can come up with like memory designations as well. So for me, the number 23 is always Michael Jordan. Okay? And so if there's something like the number 23, let's say we're going to an apartment 2305. Okay? I can break that down and think 23 and 05. 23 is Michael Jordan. 05, I can think of Baron Davis, another basketball player that I can think of. I can think about them, arm wrestling or playing basketball or anything that involves the two of them. But the idea is to make it as ridiculous as possible. Maybe even at that apartment in the door, both trying to open the door together. Okay? So the imagery that our mind is very, very creative, and our mind is able to pick up on things that are ridiculous. Like, have you ever name something in your life that you saw that was just ridiculous that you'll never forget?
My sister wore a fisherman's hat.
Okay, so why does that image stick out in your mind?
Because it looked ridiculous.
Right? Because it was different than normal. Okay? Because it was something that made your mind go, hey, that's not what you usually would expect, and because of it, I should probably be careful with it. I mean, just like out in the wild, if you are walking in the desert and you see a lion pop up, your mind goes, oh my God, that's unusual. I should probably be careful right now. Okay? And so it's not that the fisherman's hat made you go, oh my God, I'm in danger, like that lion's about to attack me, but it's still your mind has this flag that goes, hey, hold up, something's different. It's not right. And that's why, if somebody's had the same haircut for 10 years in a row and then all of a sudden changes it up, you notice those little things sometimes because it's just different enough that makes your mind signal, hey, something's off. We need to figure that out because it's a survival skill. We're going to use those survival skills to help us understand, and figure out our learning as well. That make sense?
Yeah.
So, are there any things in your classes right now that you're having trouble with your default positions? Go ahead and list them down.